All right, so thank you again, everyone, for joining today. My name is Sonia Siddiqui, and we have Vivian Lee back again to talk about the Canadian recruitment process. Hi, Vivian.
Hello, hi everyone. Sorry for the technology challenge.
Well, that's
I'm
what
glad to
happens
be
in
back.
the online world, right? But we're happy that most people were able to get back on, and you will be able to get a recording after as well. Actually, the Zoom link that was sent out to you turns into a recording in a few hours, but I'll make sure that I send a recording to everyone anyway. So just to let you know, everyone is on listen only mode. We won't be able to hear you. Hopefully you can hear us, but Vivian will be answering questions after her presentation. And for that, please type your questions into the Q&A tab. And for best results, please use a laptop or desktop computer using Google Chrome as your browser. If you are using mobile devices like Vivian is, like a tablet or a cell phone, I highly suggest downloading the Zoom app and then watch the webinar through the app. And your feedback is always important to us, so please do fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about ACCES. We've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. We've served over 34,000 job seekers just in the last year. We work with over 2,200 employers, and we work with various there's different organizations, different associations, and we've got great sponsors such as RBC, and we work with all of them, and we continue to support our job seekers and our employers to meet each other and help out each other. We've got over 30 tailored programs that include our sector-specific bridging programs, and RBC works very closely with our finance sector bridging program as well. And we are hosting all of our bridging programs currently online. Usually you would come into one of our physical locations to attend a bridging program, but now everything is online, so you can attend it from the comfort of your own home. So call your closest ACCES location to find out which bridging program is best suited for you and when you can start. We do have 7 physical locations of ACCES in the GTA, but like I mentioned, everything is being done online right now. So all of our workshops, all of our in-person job search support, everything is done online. It's business as usual. So give us a call and we will walk you through the whole process. So Vivian, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Sonia. Welcome, everyone. Very happy to be here again with ACCES Employment and talk about some questions that usually our newcomer job seekers would ask, especially regarding the Canadian recruitment process. And it's a very, very interesting topic because a lot of people like myself, when I first came to Canada, I had a lot of questions, and I hope this session will provide some value to you in your job searching journey. So I will start by talking a little bit about RBC and our commitment to the newcomers community. So Sonia, if you could move to the next slide. Next one. Thank you. Yeah, so a little bit about RBC, and I think a lot of you might have known that RBC is one of the largest banks, but behind that bank is 80,000 employees. And we get a lot of recognition from the industry, and both from our performance perspective and from our commitment to diversity and inclusion. Right, we're recently named by LinkedIn as Canada's #1 company. We also got a lot of awards and diversity, the best employer, and all that. Right. What made me proud is my RBC colleagues. Of course, that's the force behind it and make all those recognitions possible. Sonia, if you could move to the next one. I want to touch base on the diversity perspective because this is, I think, close to a lot of people's heart, especially for immigrants, right? At RBC, we do have hire from the community to serve the community practice, and we serve the community in over 200 languages, including American Sign Language. That's the language that we use to support people who are hard of hearing. And so I get asked a lot of questions about whether immigrants, they can apply for a job in RBC. Of course you can, because if you really think about it, who would be able to speak those 200 languages to serve the communities, right? So those are first or second generation immigrants like yourself. Right, and over 40% of our executive population are women. We're actually at a 45%. That's in a very good position compared to the other organizations in Canada. That definitely showcase our commitment to gender equality in our workplace. And over 30% of our workforce are visible minorities. So by visible minority, it means non-white, by color, non-Caucasian, by race. I always say a lot of majority of our newcomer job seekers fall under this category. So in Canada, based on the Canadian workforce availability, it's around 25%. So RBC has made a lot of commitment and effort in the past to make sure that our workforce represents the communities we serve, right? Once you join RBC, we have a lot of employee resource groups that you can choose anyone to join or as many as you want to join, as long as you can just join them to learn more about different communities, or you can join them to for networking and mentoring opportunities and for personal growth, right? And each group, they actually host a lot of events. Also allow every new employees to feel that sense of belonging and have your voice heard. And the last one is, another award. We are actually the #1 in Canada, the third globally. That definitely shows the commitment in the diversity and inclusion space from senior executives and to our employees, 80,000 employees. Sunny, if you can move to the next one. I know as newcomers, what you care and be interested most is, so what is RBC doing for the newcomers, right? Newcomer inclusion at RBC is a very important pillar from our strategy perspective. And from the talent inclusion perspective, we have been working very closely with our personal and commercial banking newcomer segment in the last few years, and really build our holistic approach towards talent, client, and community, and really help newcomer launch their careers and build a prosperous life in Canada. So from talent inclusion perspective, there are a few highlights that I want to mention. One is definitely our participation of the Career Edge Internship Program. So this is Career Edge is a third-party vendor that we partner with. We recruit and engage newcomer job seekers from an internship perspective. RBC has been the largest host of this program for the last 5 or 6 years. It's by name you can know it's an internship. So we invite newcomer job seekers to come to RBC for 6 to 12 months base, depending on the business needs, and then you get the valuable sometimes first Canadian experience. We know that it's very, very difficult for newcomers to break that no job, no Canadian experience, no job, and no job, no Canadian experience cycle. So this program, even though it's not paid very high, I have to make acknowledgement of that, but it does provide you the valuable work experience. And sometimes the business would really top up the pay to provide as equitable pay as possible to our interns. But it's a great place to start. We also have our RBC venture called Arrive. Arrive is a platform which allows newcomers to really build that network and connect with each other, right? And they also facilitate a lot of mentorship opportunities to engage people who are already working in the industry to connect with you and answer some of your questions. And they have a lot of amazing initiatives lined up actually in the second half of the year. So please do check them out and see in what way you can engage and in what way they can help you. And like I mentioned, the Mosaic is RBC's employee resource group focusing on newcomer employees and visible minorities. And there's a lot of amazing initiatives going on once you join us. RBC is a proud sponsor of the Canadian Top Immigrants Awards for the last, I would say, more than 10 years. Every year, RBC would sponsor the nomination and award for the Canadian Top 25 immigrants, and they're role models actually for all the immigrants in Canada. A lot of amazing stories, and we definitely are very proud to be a part of this initiative. As I mentioned, so we partner with very closely with our banking side of the newcomer segment. We have a great initiative called Newcomer Meeting Place. So in Toronto, we have two different locations, one in Brampton, one in Markham, and currently they're providing online support to different newcomers who want to get support. And it's not only about banking. So the objective of those newcomer meeting places are we provide the beyond banking support. So if you just come to Canada and you have any questions about settling down as a new Canadian, you can come to us and ask questions. And a lot of the questions are regarding job searching. Right, so we would provide that kind of partnership with the newcomer meeting place and provide those advice and support to help your job searching journey a little bit easier. So definitely check them out. And we are planning to launch a lot of new locations across Canada as well. And now, so the good thing about this pandemic situation is you don't have to be personally in Toronto or in Brampton to be able to join those events, right? You can definitely connect with them online and join the virtual events, even if you're not in Toronto or in Brampton, Markham. TRIAC is another initiative that RBC, a lot of RBC mentors participate in. So basically, when you participate in the TRIAC mentorship, you can Google them and join the mentorship program. You would be matched with an RBC mentor, and then we go through this 3-4 months journey, mentorship journey, and the mentors will provide you some insight in terms of job searching and answer you some questions regarding the industry you're interested in, right? I don't have the exact number in my head, but they have very high success rate of landing a job after 3 or 4 months or maybe 6 months participating in the mentorship. So I highly recommend you to check it out. Next slide, please, Sonia. Yeah, so from a recruitment perspective, right, a lot of newcomers worried about the hiring bias towards immigrants, right? What if I have accent, and what if my language or my culture and anything that's related to me as an immigrant that would put me at a disadvantage. We're very proud to say within RBC, over 40% of our Canadian recruiters are visible minorities. So that means that they are either first or second generation immigrants, right? They bring that cultural acumen into our recruitment practice to make sure that we are able to address the hiring bias towards newcomer or immigrant job seekers. They also bring that kind of expertise to the hiring managers, right? Educate our hiring managers about the talent and the capabilities that our immigrants are able to bring to the company. Another thing is in between 2017 and 2019, this year, we have a different approach due to the COVID situation, but in the past, we have run a lot of in-person events, workshops, as well as webinars like the one we're having today, just to help support newcomers in their job searching journey. Next one, Sonia. Okay, so we're going to touch on the key topics today is about demystify the job searching Canadian recruitment process, right? And then, you know, you all know that in the recruitment process, there are different stages. One is the application, one is the interview, one is the offer stage. I'm going to start by addressing some questions that we usually get asked at different stages, right? And then I'm going to leave around 15 minutes. I know we started late, so you know, we can go a little bit beyond 12, maybe 12:15 to really allow those time to answer some additional questions, right? In the application stage, usually, you know, we post I would say over 95% of our jobs externally. So definitely, you know, apply for jobs online. That would be my best recommendation. Sometimes we receive job seekers' resumes and say, hey, this is my resume, please help me find a job that you think that's available in your organization. My advice is always, you know, you need to do your homework and you need to do your part before you can ask the recruiters to help you. So do your job search and do your homework and find a job that's most relevant and suitable for your expertise first and apply before. So when you send emails like that, say, please help me find a job in your organization. We're not job hunters, right? We're not recruitment agencies. So really recruiters don't really have that kind of time to provide you that high touch job searching support. So do not do that. Do not do that. You know, I also get asked a lot about the first.
Vivian, you're muted. Oh, okay. You were muted for a little bit. Can you repeat what you were saying?
Yeah, okay. So do I need to have worked in another bank to apply for banking jobs in RBC? Absolutely not, because otherwise, how can you ever work in Canada if you have not worked, you know, in Canada before? It's not only you don't have to have worked in another bank. It's also you don't have to have worked in Canada. Because of what I just mentioned, that we do want people from different cultural background, different countries, ethnic background, to bring your diverse perspectives into RBC. Every year we hire a lot of newcomers into the bank, right? It's more about what transferable skills, what experiences that you can bring to add to what RBC's organizational knowledge we already have. It's less about, you know, you have to be able to, you have to already work in a bank or already work in a Canadian company. And so, for example, our most high volume roles, like a banking advisor, and client advisor in most countries, you might call it teller's job or customer service jobs. For those jobs that you, of course, if you have worked in a bank and understand the banking structure from your own country, that's of course a bonus. But if you have ever worked in a sales environment or customer service environment, that's also a great asset that we're looking for. Right? If you have worked in the sales, say in your home country, in either airline or in retail, and that's that's the personal interpersonal skills that we're looking for. We're looking for that passion that you have to connect with another individual and be able to make that connection. And then promote RBC's products, right? You don't have to know any RBC products before you apply. Of course, if you know some, and that's ideal. If you're an RBC customer, we would love that for sure. But we would have a lot of trainings to make sure you, after you are onboarded, to make sure you're successful in your role at RBC, that can provide that kind of advice for the clients, right? But we don't expect you to already know that. You don't have to have any crash course to learn about RBC products before you apply for jobs. So what we're looking for is the soft skills and the skills that to be able to learn, and the passion to connect with our clients. Right, so that's, I don't know whether I can make it more clear. Definitely, apply. And the other thing is, I only have 7 years of experience of a job that says over 10 years. And should I still apply? I would definitely encourage you to apply, and because of those requirement in a lot of, not only in RBC's job posting, right, but all in other employers' job postings, those requirements are very subjective. And what is it in the employer's place to say that you have to have 10 years experience, and if you have, say, 7 years or 9 years or 8 years experience, you're not qualified. It's very hard to determine that whether you are the potential best candidate. Just because someone else worked in the industry for 10 years does not make you a less valuable candidate than the others, right? So I would definitely encourage you to apply. That's not a signal of you are being dishonest or trying too high. No. So if you believe that you can do the job, apply, right? And definitely showcase. If you're invited to the interview, do not focus on the fact, oh, I only have 7 years, so please don't disregard me, or please do not consider me in a disadvantage compared to other candidates. Focus on what you can deliver. Focus on your skills and experience. And even though you only have 7 years, just say you only have 7 years, but you are able to have learned a lot within a shorter period of time than others, and you are able to achieve A, B, C, and D. Right? Focus on the strengths versus just, oh, I'm sorry, I don't just, and plus I'm not, I'm newcomer to Canada. How can I ever have that 7 years of experience? Do not put that against yourself, ever, right? So you applied, and definitely, I would focus the importance and stress the importance of networking. And that help you really, I would say, stand out in front of recruiters. If you have personally connected with a particular recruiter or someone from the industry to help you present yourself, like it or not, Canadian workplace, our recruitment environment is, a lot of times the networking does play an important role. And in a lot of cultures that newcomer come from, right? It's not networking, it has that negative connotation. Saying, okay, why do I have to network if I have this strong capability? Network only allows you to have the ability to showcase yourself to potential recruiters and hiring managers. It does not give you advantage, unearned advantage, I would say, and unearned advantage compared to other candidates. You still have to show your skills and capabilities and experience when they talk to you, but it just gets their attention, right? And for a lot of newcomers, it is uncomfortable And it is a comfort zone that you need to step out to really. And we had a lot of and ACCES as well had a lot of webinars on how to network. So please do check them out. I see to build some skills. If you say, oh, I have great interpersonal skills, I can make connection with another individual, then showcase that through your networking, test it out, right? Test it out. How can you make connection with another individual in this networking environment, right? So I'm going to just mention that at a very high level. So say you apply for a job and you're very, very fortunate you get selected to meet a recruiter, right? And sorry, okay, I had to mention about the waiting time because we get asked a lot, right? I applied for a job and after 3-4 weeks, I have not heard back. Or after 3-4 months, I have not heard back, right? There's a difference. And what's happening behind the scene? I can explain a little bit. So every recruiter have between say 20 to 50 job requisitions they manage at the same time, right? Depending on how crazy their workload is, and the job you apply is only one of them. And for companies like RBC at the back, every job we receive, between say 200 to 1,000 applications. So on average, maybe 500, 300 on the lower end, and 500. That's very, very normal. So recruiters need the time to go through those resumes, right? And so that's why working on your resume is very important, because recruiters, based on their workload, they may not have a lot of time allocated to each candidate, each resume. Maybe each resume they look for 20 seconds. So make sure your resume can catch their attention, and there's a lot of tips on building the effective resume that you want to check out other webinars, right? And you get their attention, and recruiters will review other candidates' resume. And that might take maybe between 2 to 3 weeks to pass on to the hiring manager, right? And the recruiters might schedule a call with you for a recruiter interview. And then the hiring manager, mind you, they're hiring people outside of their normal regular work hour or workload, right? They have to squeeze in some time to, talk to recruiters and select and screen resumes. So that, and to schedule interviews, that's, also out of their regular workload. So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks, even just to schedule interview with the hiring manager. So that adds up to almost a month, right? Almost a month. So if you receive a call from a recruiter to schedule you for an interview within a month, and that's totally normal, right? Sometimes for more senior positions, it might take them even more time because they might have to invite another hiring manager or hiring manager's manager to be engaged. And that's even the more seniors, the less time they have, right? So take that into consideration. So normal, in normal situation, and it takes between 1 to 2 months or 3 months to make a hire. That's very, very standard. Right, so if you have waited for 2 to 3 weeks, you're within your right to follow up. But most likely, they're still in the recruitment process. But if you have waited for 2 to 3 months, most likely they have moved forward with some other candidates, or they are already in the screening or interview process, and they haven't contacted you. Means maybe you are not selected. You are still encouraged, you can feel free to follow up, but also you should also look for other opportunities, right? A lot of times for job seekers, whether you are a newcomer or not, and you apply for 100 jobs, you get 2 or 3 interviews. That's a very, very high success rate, especially considering the job market now. It's very, very challenging. So because a lot of companies are not hiring, and a lot of companies are restricting their hiring to internal hires to keep the job for their employees. I have to say it is a very, very challenging right now, but also is, do not lose hope, but its situation is going to get better. So that's just something that I want to mention, right? I recently talked to the internal candidate, and he is, mind you, he's within RBC, right? And he successfully got a new job. And he had been connecting with me for the last year or so, and he shared with me his story. And I hope this will help you as well. He said, even within RBC, right, he applied 200 jobs within the last 2 years. 200 because he is originally working in finance, but he always had this curiosity and interest in the technology field. He noticed that in his team, because there's not enough resource to handle the tickets finance put for IT. So the IT team, there's a lack of resource support, and they didn't have the budget to hire someone new. So there are a lot of old tickets that the bugs or whatever system need a requirement that's not handled by the IT team. Because he has the finance knowledge and he had this ability or interest in exploring more on the system side. So he started working on those tickets, right? And he got very, very interested in those areas, and he got very, very good at it. So he started exploring his career, but it wasn't easy. Even within, it wasn't easy. He had like a countless coffee chats and applied for over 200 jobs. And he got over like 20 interviews. And he was always, a lot of the interviews he got the last, top 2, and he was not chosen. But he didn't get discouraged, right? He kept applying and kept having coffee chats, and he was, last time I checked with him, he was able to get a job offer. So even for internal candidates, I want to remind everybody, you really need the patience, the perseverance, and really showcase and do not lose hope. And not to mention the challenges much more bigger from external perspective, right? So that's one thing. And also people would ask, is it rude to follow up? No, it's not rude. Just do not harass. Just you follow up for every 2-3 weeks. That's totally normal, and it's within your right to follow up, right? But you don't have to follow up. Okay, after 2 days, I haven't heard back. I send another email. After 2 days, then you are going to lose the recruiter's attention, right? That's just normal human behavior. If you really think about it from a recruiter's perspective, treat the recruiters as another human being. Right, and what would their reaction be? It's very professionally and respectfully follow up, and that's totally okay. One is, a lot of concerns. English is not my first language, and I get nervous when I talk to recruiters and the hiring manager. What can I do to improve the situation? The question is twofold, right? One is it is within on you to improve your English. Right. So after all, this is an English-speaking country, and it is on you to step out of your comfort zone to really practice. But mind you, though, English and a language can only be learned by making mistakes. So it's totally normal that when you practice and you make a lot of mistakes, people might laugh at you, and people might think you're silly. Make some silly grammar mistakes, or you speak broken English, and it's a matter of ego, right? You have to let your ego go to be able to really develop. There's a saying that it is in your most uncomfortable areas that you are able to grow and develop most. So take this as an opportunity as a personal development opportunity, right? Even just practice. And a lot of the newcomers tend to get stuck in their own community. I feel more comfortable speaking the Chinese, speaking my mother tongue with people from my community. That's a human behavior, right? And people tend to feel that kind of sense of security within their own communities, but you will never be able to grow, right? If you get stuck there. So definitely challenge yourself. And this is something that employers, there's not much employers can do to help you. You have to make the first step. But always, always remember that in the interview or when you're searching for jobs, it is not your accent that matters. It's more about the message you deliver, right? It is not your grammar mistakes that matters. It is how sincere and how passionate you are able to show to the hiring managers about your, your attitude, right? And why you want the job, right? Even if you sometimes you make grammar mistakes and you have accents, and accents are part of who you are. It's never going to happen that you are going to speak. I cannot say never, but it's unlikely that you are going to speak just without any accent like the people who are born here. But remember, it's a part of who you are as an immigrant. And you're pretty proud of your accent, right? It shows that your culture element, right? And bring some fun to it. Make grammar mistakes that go on. People can understand you, and that is fine. And if people cannot go past the fact that you make grammar mistake because you're an immigrant, let them be, right? And you want to work for someone who would pay attention to your strength and value your strengths and what you can bring to the table versus those people who would pick your little grammar mistakes, right? It's a matter of they choose you as well as you choose them, right? You want to work for someone who value and give you the development opportunity versus put their biases on you as an immigrant. So that's the mindset I think I would encourage you to have. In the interview, focus on your achievements, focus on your what you can bring to the table, focus on your passion to the job, and focus on what you can help the hiring manager and help the team, and a diverse perspective from your own background. What is it that someone else who grew up in Canada don't have that you have? Right? You might not be able to speak as fluent as others, but you can be as informative, be as interesting, as inspiration as you can as an individual. And overcoming something like immigrating into a new country, that's the biggest human life change, right? A lot of the times. So that shows you as an individual. So showcase that. Do not let the language barrier become a barrier you set for yourself, right? So again, it's twofold. You need to work on your language. On the other hand, do not let it stop you from presenting yourself the best way you can. It's always do not let it haunt you, right? Because even if you get a job, and you still think, okay, English is not my first language, this thing is always going to come back and haunt you in your career development once you get hired, right? You will not take the risk to have your voice and opinions heard in the team meetings. And then you will be considered less valuable in the team, right? And you will be passed on for promotional opportunities, right? So do not ever get that out of your mind and just say, I can just contribute as much as possible. I have as much valuable ideas as I have as an individual, just as much or even more, and I will not let my accent or grammar mistake stop myself, right? And once you are able to overcome that, you will notice that it's really not that important. But at the same time, I want to really improve and really have that master of a language as much as possible. Go to register for Toastmasters, right? It's a very, very judgment-free environment, and practice your English, get your English critiqued by some fellow passionate Toastmasters, and make a lot of friends there, right? So the last one is offer stage. Say you did a fantastic job in the interview, and you are given an offer. And a lot of times, we get asked, can I, ask how much money is a good, strategy that I should ask, right? First, do your research. There are a lot of people on LinkedIn, a lot of people who are maybe your friends from the community already work in the field. They can give you a range. Do not ask how much you are being paid. Right? In some cultures, very, very direct, right? I remember, a few years when I went back to China, and I was on the subway, and I was holding my suitcase, and people asked me, so you are obviously traveling? I said, yeah, I'm from Canada. How much do they pay you? So maybe for certain cultures, it's very natural. People just ask you directly, how much are you paid? But in Canadian cultures, much subtle. Do your research and ask the range. What is the pay range for this kind of job, right? They say, oh, okay, it's 60 to 70. And then you can assess based on your own personal situation, your experience, and you can ask, based on your comfort level, right? And if you feel you are underpaid, never just stop from asking. If it's for certain roles, they have a range, right? For example, our customer service and the entry-level roles, there's a band that our recruiters and hiring managers are working with. For other roles, there's more flexibility, right? Do not undersell yourself. Not because you're an immigrant, I deserve to be paid less. Never think that way. Think about what you can bring to the table, and then negotiate professionally and respectfully, and do not take it personally if they don't give you a top up and give you what you're expecting. Just be practical and realistic, but never be shy to ask you if you think you're treated unfairly. What does background check include in Canada? So this I get asked a lot too. Background check, once you get a job offer, say, okay, offer is conditional upon the successful completion of background check. We usually would check your employment history, your education that you put on the resume. So one thing very, very important, do not lie. You lie once, you get caught once, it will always show up in your background check, right? And it will remain there for many, many years. So next time you apply for a job in RBC and we do a background check, and we will see, okay, this candidate lied about the employment history. So that will be a huge factor that the employers withdraw their offer, because integrity is extremely important. Right? I know, I understand from immigrant perspective, those small lies does not matter. Right? I'm not really lying. I just want to make sure you understand what I really worked on. So if you want to say, hey, I worked on something that's equivalent, my home country's job title is this, is teller, right? And RBC's job title is client advisor. You put that RBC's job title or Canadian job title in a bracket, equivalent to Canadian whatever, right? So that the recruiters do not disregard what you have in your past experience. So that's one thing. And very important, to not lie. And we also check your credit history and criminal history. Criminal is a no-brainer, right? Credit history, we do not check whether how long you've been in Canada, whether you have a good credit, because we understand a lot of new Canadians, they just arrive, right? It's not fair to check whether they have been able to build a good credit history. We check whether you have been ever involved in any fraud activities. And just, I think it's understandable as a bank, we want to hire someone with very high integrity, right? We don't want to hire people who have been in fraud activities and really put our client at risk. And so those are the things that we check. For reference, That's optional. So reference means that you provide us a name and a phone number of someone you have worked in the past, and we want to really check with your previous employer. How did this, how did Sonia perform in in her home country? And what was your impression? What were her strengths and weaknesses? That is the hiring manager's decision. And some hiring manager might choose not to do a reference check. So that's only based on, it's optional, and we will ask at that stage if we require or request the reference. Another thing is that some immigrants might worry, oh, so it will take maybe a long time for my previous employer to respond because I'm in another country. Don't worry about that. We hire tons of immigrants, and we do allow enough time to do those kind of background check. And if we cannot connect with one of the employers you will provide, we will come back to you, and we will ask for you to provide another contact information. So that will not put you in any case at a disadvantage. So be rest assured, right? Yeah, so I have, talked a lot, and I know, it's just a very, very high level. I would, reserve some time for questions. So Sonia, maybe over back to you to ask some questions from our audience.
Perfect. Thank you, Vivian. I'm going to open it up for questions here. And I guess I'll move it to the last slide here so that everyone can see your information. All right, so we'll start from the top here. And again, thank you everyone for bearing with us. Okay. Because I think a lot of questions have already been answered. Yep. Vivian, can you briefly talk about Career Edge again and how new immigrants can take advantage of this program?
For the Career Edge, you can just Google Career Edge organization, and as a newcomer, there is a category called internationally qualified professionals. So say you have worked in finance and you want an internship in the finance, they will validate your credentials. Whether you're eligible. Usually the service is provided for really new Canadians. So I don't quite remember whether it's between 1 to or 0 to 5 years or 0 to 3 years. So you have not been able to work in the job of your profession since you arrived. So that's the criteria, but you'll be able to search more details when you Google them, and there might be some contact that you can reach out to. And RBC, the way we hire is we do connect with our hiring managers. We promote a program with our business. So if a hiring manager has a request, they will contact my team. We are responsible for manage that program. We would post a job. And the good thing about Career Edge is, even though it's not paid as high as full-time, the competition is not as severe as a full-time role, because less people know about the internship, right? So usually it's between 30 to 50 applications. And if you have very strong qualifications, most likely you will stand out, right? So that's the advantage. And I have to be honest, it's not paid as high as the full-time. Yeah, so it really depends on your personal need, right? You want your experience, and you want to get to know a little bit about the Canadian workplace culture, and that would be a not bad option for you.
Thank you, Vivian. And how does RBC conduct interviews? Is it important to do them face to face, or is it okay to do it over like a Skype or like not in person?
That's a good question because right now we are limited to do virtual interviews,
Don't have a
right?
choice right now.
No, it's been such an change and an exercise, and it really open our mind and eyes in a lot of ways, right? We never thought we would be able to do this, at such a scale. Really, previously. The recruiters usually conduct interview by over the phone. However, some recruiters do invite candidates to come in person. The hiring managers interview usually is in person because they want to make that personal connection, right? However, if say in some circumstances, either the candidate or the hiring manager cannot make it in person, but the hiring need is urgent, they would choose to do the video call. So that's also an option. And right now, the majority of the interviews are done virtually.
Thank you. And is it necessary to have formal finance education to be able to apply to RBC?
It really depends on the role you apply for, right? If you apply for entry-level client-facing role, no, like I mentioned, like if you have customer service and the sales experience before, that would make you just as competitive. But if you apply for a finance role, like accountant in certain roles by the employment law, Canadian law, you have to have a designation to be able to apply for those roles, and it's really job specific. I would recommend that you do some research and see whether it's a must-have in the job requirement.
Thank you. Next question, you probably get this question a lot. What can people do about the gap on their resumes? So if someone was in IT or app development, they've got 6 years of a gap, but they have been doing certifications. What can they do to stand out?
So do not, like I mentioned, do not make those gaps be the main barrier in your head, right? And those gaps that we, on one hand, we do educate our hiring managers that people might have gap in their resume for different reasons. Sometimes you take time to take care of your personal well-being, or something happens in your life, and challenge happen in life, and they just have to manage that. And for newcomers, of course, everybody understands it takes at least 6 months to a year to find a job, right? And it's very, very understandable you have that gap. The important thing is, what did you do with that gap? Say you're unemployed for that period of time, and you might be asked in the interview, okay, so what happened? And you say, yeah, I was unemployed because I'm a newcomer to Canada, but I used the opportunity to really develop myself, to learn about Canadian culture, to volunteer and build my skills, and turn that disadvantage into an advantage in your interview, right? That's always, for you to showcase yourself that you have the positive attitude and you never give up, and you can face your challenges honestly. You don't hide, right? Never lie about the gap, right? You don't hide it. And but I think it's good to really use that gap. For example, now the employment opportunities are few. And what are you doing as a newcomer? Are you taking the opportunity to learn to better your English and communication skills? Are you taking up the government offer to do some volunteer work to help others? And what you're doing positively that will put you in a favorable condition situation in the future when you are in the interview.
Thank you, Vivian. So because of the current situation, should people apply for jobs before they have landed in Canada?
Well, you always have the right to apply, right? So definitely search if there are opportunities, why not? The thing is, sometimes it doesn't need some time for you to get to know more about the Canadian workplace culture. And while you're waiting, right, for the employers to get back to you, take this time to really know more about the culture, to know more about the workplace, to know more, understand, network with the industry professionals, to understand better about what's required for you to be successful, both in the interview and in the job, right? But nobody prevents you, or it's of course legal to apply. It's what how you present yourself, but definitely better preparation helps. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, is it okay to reach there? Okay, so if there's an opening in a company, should people reach out to the hiring manager to talk about their application?
If you know the hiring manager, right, you can, and just make sure you do not come to like impress them as abrupt or harassing or unprofessional. But say, I think I have the skills and experience to be qualified for the job. Feel free to reach out, right? Just be professional and be respectful. And if they don't get back to you, do not feel offended, because it's really not about you. They all have their busy schedule, and maybe they didn't have any impression about you, right? You might have a brave encounter, they don't remember who you are, but definitely take every opportunity you have. Yeah.
Thank you. So everyone's, worried about the current situation. Is everything at a halt right now, or is RBC still recruiting? Are you still hiring? Or is there a hiring freeze right now?
We are hiring. The volume has gone down.
Mm-hmm. Just like everywhere else.
Yeah, just like everywhere else. And RBC has recently made a commitment that we're not going to cut jobs for 2020. And that implication is, a lot of the opportunities we want to reserve for the employees, and help everybody understand. But I do know that there are plan to post more jobs, especially for our customer service, for our call center, for different IT. There's a constant need in those spaces, but in general, the volume has gone down. And we, at the same time, we also hope that the situation will get better soon, so that we can invite more talented candidate into RBC for sure.
Thank you. Next question here is a question we get often. So if someone's applied for a job at RBC and they didn't get the job, does that affect them if they're applying for another job at RBC, or how long should they wait to apply for another job at RBC?
In most jobs, you don't have to wait, and it doesn't impact your ability, or the eligibility to apply for another role. In certain jobs, like entry level, if you fail the test, like we do send out a test, right, which is the assessment, we would encourage you to wait for 6 months to apply for the same role. But if you say, I apply for this customer service role, then I applied for a project manager role that's totally unrelated, you don't have to wait at all, right? It's only certain roles, and the recruiters will let you know, because we want you to take the 6 months period to really improve and work on your skills and maybe experience before you apply again. So that's the only reason, but you're welcome to apply. But my only advice is to apply for the jobs that's relevant to your skills and experience. You don't want to be seen as, today I apply for a vice president job, and tomorrow I apply for HR, and the next day I apply for IT. So you see as anything as too desperate and do not know what you're looking for, and that's not the impression you want to create, right?
Thank you. Next question here is, do you recommend taking courses to work at RBC, like any banking courses?
I think it's based on your personal situation, based on your, financial situation. It definitely is a bonus. However, a lot of our roles, it's not hard requirement, right? We would allow you certain time after you get hired to complete the required courses, right? We would give you, I don't quite remember for how long, maybe 6 months. Within the 6 months, you have to pass the Canadian security course. And so it's not a must have, it's only a nice to have.
Perfect. Nicely answered. So next question is, if someone's been working as an internal auditor in their country and they want to come to Canada, is it okay for them to apply as a banking advisor?
It's always okay. It's always okay, right? So the thing is, how do you present yourself, right? And you need to really showcase why you want to make that career switch, because the auditor is a very different job than banking advisor, right? One is working behind the desk and working on the numbers and the strategy. The other one is interacting with the customers. So you have to be able to really convince the recruiter why you're going to be committed and why this is important, and you are not going to change. So after you just get hired, 2 weeks after you get hired, you're going to jump to another job, right? And that's a recruiter's worst nightmare. But if you have the valid reason, why not?
Thank you. And let me know when it's time to go, Vivian.
We can go for another 3 minutes, I guess, and I know some people might have other commitment as well. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So next question here is, I guess, negotiating salary. So does the HR normally just tell you what the pay is, or is there room to negotiate salary?
It really is depend on the hiring manager. Usually the practice, the hiring manager would communicate the pay to HR, and HR would make the offer as they are making a verbal offer to you. And if you want to negotiate, there's always the opportunity that you tell HR, this is what you're expecting, and HR will go back to hiring manager and say, hey, this is what the candidate is looking for. Do you have any room to move up, right? And sometimes in the interview, the hiring manager is wowed by you and they just offer you, it happens, they offer you a job on the spot. And how about this? How about the salary? How about, they would communicate directly with you, and then you have the opportunity to really look at the salary and negotiate with hiring manager directly. But most common practice is through HR.
Thank you. So do we have, again, some Career Edge questions? So is Career Edge the only way to have an internship at RBC? And through the internships, are people able to land a full-time job at RBC?
Yeah, so right now we have some just Career Edge for dedicated supporting newcomers. Of course, there are a lot of full-time opportunities, right? Career Edge usually have around 40 to 50% conversion rate. Means after Career Edge, you have the opportunity to stay in RBC. Really depends on whether the business has the headcount and has the budget. And also, of course, depends on your performance, right? And it's really not a 100% yes, but there's definitely opportunity to stay.
All right, let's do one last question. And you know what, we get a lot of this question, so maybe you can clarify this. Does RBC hire volunteers? And if not, what is the reason?
We don't hire volunteers, and by hire, employer is obligated to pay, right? And that's the reason that, we don't consider that a fair practice to make people work for us and we don't pay. That's the thing, right? and I think that's the best answer I can give, right? Because of that. So we do encourage, and we have internship opportunity, and we want to offer some compensation for the work people put in, right? And I know some people would rather, oh, I would love the opportunity to volunteer for RBC. We are not a nonprofit organization, we're private sector, and we don't want to offer people fair compensation when we require people to work for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, very nicely answered. So as you can see, we have all of the information on how to contact RBC, how to apply for jobs on the screen as well. And we have 2 webinars from RBC every month. Actually, we have several. I'm running 2 a month, but there are a lot more posted on our website. So keep an eye out on our LinkedIn page to see what else is RBC is offering. So Vivian, before I move on to talking about the next RBC webinar, do you want to say anything?
No, thank everybody for attending the webinar. I hope the information is helpful. And like I said, we had a lot of previous webinars targeting, how do you do your resume? How do you do interview? How do you network? Please do check out those previous webinars hosted by RBC. And also there were a lot of webinars hosted by my recruitment colleagues talking about different roles in different business lines. So feel free to check them out as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vivian. And again, I'd like to apologize about the technical issues that we had today. We're still happy that we were able to get a lot of you on. Everyone who has registered will get a recording of the webinar. If not today, then sometime tomorrow. Our next webinar coming up is actually part of a RBC workshop series called Your Brand Matters. And we've got a group of RBC Future Launch Champions that will be hosting this webinar. So if you'd like to sign up, please sign on to go to accessemployment.ca/online event series, and we'll see you then. And again, I just want to talk about that you can view all other webinars as well. So accessemployment.ca/online event series, register for webinars, and we'll see you online. All our programs and services are being delivered online, which include all of our bridging programs. So if you want to attend an information session, please go to our website, click on job seekers and either calendar events, or you can click on programs and services and select the program you'd be interested in. And you can use our e-resources. So we've got lots of past webinars posted on there. We've got a special section for RBC, so you can check out all of our RBC posts and previous webinars as well. If you'd like to practice your English conversation skills, you can join our online Talk English Cafe as well. And we have several dates during the week and different times, so you can see what best suits you and you can join online. And if you'd like to book an appointment to speak with an employment consultant, just call your closest ACCESS location and someone will definitely be there to help you. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. Thank you all for joining and, like being a good sport about today's webinar. And Vivian, thank you so much. We will see everyone next time. Have a great day ahead.
Thanks.